and we'll transition to staff. So we're going to get the body prepped for a little hamstring work. Let the legs extend. Remember, you can bend the knees, and we'll just take ourselves into a nice seated forward fold. Where the more bend you put into the knees, the more you can expand if the hamstrings are the limiting factor. There's this really peaceful little village. And in the center of the town center, there's this immaculate fire burning. No one has any idea who built the fire, who lit the fire, or even when the fire first emerged. But it's there, and it's stunningly beautiful. Let's give ourselves just 30 more seconds here in this fold. Just really allowing for the exhale breath to encourage depth. And when it feels appropriate for you, we'll bring ourselves back up into staff. And we're going to lower ourselves onto our backs. And just get the lumbar nice and neutral. And let's extend the right leg up towards the ceiling or sky. Same thing here. The knee can bend. So towards the ceiling, not maybe directly at it. Hands are going to interlace either behind the hamstring, or we can grab the shorts or pants. And we just want to elevate that right leg for now. Remember, the knee can bend. And then if it feels accessible to you, we're going to allow the left leg to extend down the mat. And then we're just going to put maybe like 10% pressure into the hamstring. So you're pushing that hamstring either into the tension of the arms or into the hands themselves. So just provide a little bit of extra engagement in that lower posterior chain. You may feel that manifest behind the knee. It may not be manifesting directly into the hamstring. Totally normal, totally okay. One more inhale and a deep releasing exhale. And then let's use the lowering of that right leg to help transition back into staff. And from staff, we're just going to transition into a forward fold. Maybe we find that we have a little bit more space here, even if that space was asymmetrically created. Can you find your way into a more symmetrical depth? Let's give ourselves just 30 more seconds here. Check in on the depth of your respiration. Are you so into the fold that the breath is becoming short? And if so, can you smooth the respiration out, elongate it? And when it feels appropriate, let's bring ourselves back up as staff, and we're headed back onto our spine. Knees can bend, and we'll extend the left foot towards the ceiling or sky. Hands here can be on the pants or behind the hamstring. And the left knee can bend. Remember that towards the sky, Does not mean directly at it. Just whatever feels appropriate for posterior chain engagement. Once you get your positioning set up, let's add that maybe 10% pressure, pushing into the hamstring so that we're just bringing this posterior chain under a little bit of tension, hoping to activate that musculature while we elongate. Maybe one more big inhale, deep releasing exhale. And then we'll utilize that left leg coming down to transition back into staff. One more brief forward fold here. So just a real quick check in on forward fold. And let's walk our way back up into seat staff. And we'll transition to hands and knees tabletop. From your tabletop, play those fingers out wide, really get the activation in the arm musculature. And let's exhale out, round the back, tuck the chin, tuck the tailbone, and just get into this flexion position. And we're just going to breathe. Big full inhales, big full exhales. When you feel like the musculature relaxes, switch positions. So we drop the belly, we lift the tailbone, we lift the chin, and then we go back into that little respiration cycle. Just trying to get the musculature to relax. You didn't miss anything. We're back. It's actually pretty amazing that we've had so few of those over the years. Okay, so let's come back to cat cow. All right, fingers spread out wide. And let's drop the belly this time. So we're going to inhale, drop the belly, lift the tailbone. And we're just going to breathe. Just a belly drop into breath. Chin lifts, tailbone lifts. And we want to feel this anterior sheath of musculature just receiving the breath. And then let's transition back into our flexion position. Spine rounds, tailbone tucks, chin tucks. And we just breathe. And we just want to feel the breath across that crest of the spinal arch. And then we'll come back to neutral. And just let your spine sit at neutral. Curl your toes. Keep that neutrality in the spine as you roll your way back into down dog. Just pushing into the depth of the shape. Getting that openness along the posterior chain, and we'll walk our way forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. And exhale back into fold. Let your head settle all the way here. Try to feel that lower posterior chain open. And then let's roll our way up vertebrae by vertebrae. Finding our way to mountain, bringing our hands together at heart center. Just breathing here. We'll slide our left foot straight back into lunge. And when we find our lunge again, we're just going to breathe here. Just feel our breath in the shape. When you're ready, we'll slide the left foot back to the front of the mat. And we'll just feel our breath in mountain. Feel like you've integrated, landed. Second side, right foot slides straight back. We just land in the shape. We keep the torso vertical. We feel the hip engagement. We pressurize that back leg. And we just breathe into the shape. Keep the weight evenly dispersed from that medial to lateral edge on that back foot, that big toe mound to the pinky toe mound. And then when you're ready, we'll slide the right foot to the front of the mat and find mountain. Let's let our hands fall behind us and interlace the fingers. And just push those thumbs down towards your heels and lift your chin. Think about squeezing the quads to active and the glutes to active. And then release the chin back to neutral and push the thumbs down that extra little millimeter you've created for yourself. And then we'll release the hands and sweep them up and overhead. Where we exhale through forward fold. Inhale into half lift and elongate the spine. Reach the crown of the head towards the front of the room. And exhale back into fold. Plant your hands. We'll walk our way back into down dog. Exhale to the depth of the tailbone. Let's come down to hands and knees, tabletop. Flip the tops of the feet and sink our way into child's pose. And we just land in child's pose here. Really just allowing our breath to soften throughout the body. And just thinking about softening throughout the body here. So at first, the elders of this village noticed this fire. Everyone noticed that there was a fire, right? You don't walk by a fire without noticing it. But they noticed how beautiful it was, how immaculate it was, how different it was. And they noted that there was one thing in particular about this fire. It didn't give off any smoke. And the elders of the community had kind of come to a conclusion that it was because it was the perfect fire. When it feels appropriate, let's pull ourselves to hands and knees tabletop. And we'll curl our toes, lift our seat, and roll our way back in our down dog. And wiggle your tailbone here. Try to get a little extra depth in your down dog. Keep those fingers anchored, especially the index finger and the index finger mound. And then we'll walk our way forward into fold. Inhaling into half lift. And exhaling your way back into fold. Inhale again into half lift. Make sure you get that full spinal extension. And then exhale your way back into fold. And then let's roll our way up vertebrae by vertebrae, coming into mountain, anchoring ourselves here in our mountain, inhaling the hands together at heart center, and sliding our left foot straight back into lunge. Take your hands to your hips and then ground your left heel. So that left heel rolls in. Keep the hips pointed forward or repoint the hips forward. And let's just sweep our way up into warrior one. Once you get the verticality of the shape, start to work on the elongation of the shape. So smooth into that right quad. Glutes and core stay active so the spine stays vertical. And then spin your left heel up, just a traditional crescent. And then we'll drop the hands and step to mountain. Breathe into your mountain shape. And let's take this to the second side. Right foot slides back. We ground the right heel, square up the hips, and then sweep the arms to express warrior one. Then we work on the elongation of the shape, the verticality first, the elongation second. Keep that nice neutral torso. And then we'll spin our right heel up, traditional crescent. Drop the hands and step to the front of the mat. Breathe into mountain. Sweep the arms up and overhead. Exhale through forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands and we'll walk the plank. Get that nice verticality to your arms. Squeeze the glutes and then lift the seat to down dog. Shift forward to plank. Vertical arm positioning and then lift to down dog. Wiggle the tailbone back into the full depth. We'll come down to hands and knees tabletop, flip the tops of the feet, and sink our way back into child's pose. And so the elders started to gather around this perfect fire, this fire with no smoke. And it was perfect in that it provided warmth and it provided light, but it never scorched. It never cast hard shadows. It was perfect in that it never released smoke. And as the elders started to gather, it wasn't too long before their children came to join them, and then their children's children came to join them. And soon enough, there was sound, the sound of joy and laughter and children playing around the warmth of this fire. And while the children laughed, ran around joyously, the adults would stare at this fire and talk about it, about this strange thing. And had shown up in the center of their town center. When it feels appropriate, let's pull ourselves back to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, send your left leg straight back behind you. Let the left toe mound touch the mat. Think about getting that same arm alignment that we had in plank. And then think about the positioning of that right leg so that the right femur is running straight down from the middle of the hip joint. And then without the weight shifting at all, let's lift that left leg to hip height so that we have a balanced weight distribution through the hands. We have a balanced weight distribution across the hip girdle. And then release that left foot down. Keep the left toe mound active and rise up into this little modified down dog. So the weight here is asymmetrically placed into that left heel, and we're using this lifted hip position to get some of that high calf insertion elongation on the left side. And then let's come back down and find tabletop. Curl both toes, lift the seat, and find a traditional down dog. Get your weight all the way back into the hips. The arms should be free and easy. And then let's come down to hands and knees, tabletop. From tabletop, send your right leg straight back. Feel that toe mound and then balance the weight distribution. We get our hips level and we'll lift the right leg to hip height. We want to stay with this balanced equilibrium of weight distribution. There's strength in the right quad. And then the right toe mound will come down. We'll find that engagement and just roll back into this little modified down dog. High calf insertion on the right side, taking the burden of the shape, trying to find some elongation there. And then when you feel balance left to right, let's come down to hands and knees. Tabletop. Spread those fingers out wide. We'll curl our toes, lift our seat, and come all the way back into down dog. Maybe wiggle your tailbone to get that extra bit of depth. And then let's walk our way forward into fold. Inhaling into half lift. Exhaling back into fold. Inhaling into half lift. And exhaling back into fold. Let's drift our awareness to our sacrum and we'll roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Finding mountain, bring the hands together, heart center. Let's send our left foot straight back into lunge. And then we're going to ground the left heel again. We want to stay with this neutral hip alignment. And let's take our hands and interlace them behind us. Now, smooth into that right quad. And then just tilt at the hip hinge so that we can come forward here. And then release the arms, sweep them in front of you, and we'll sweep up into Little Warrior One. Now, drop the hands to the hips and smooth into that right hamstring. Splay the toes out nice and wide. Think about developing the strength here in the leg foundation. And then let's tilt at the hip hinge. And then sweep your arms out in front of you and rise up. And then bend the right knee. Little Warrior One. Let's roll the warrior two. Good torso elongation, good hip opening, and then spin the left heel up for crescent. Drop the hands to heart center, and we'll step to the front of the mat. And we'll just breathe here. Just breathing into the sensation of mountain. Slide our right foot straight back. We'll ground the right heel. Sweep our way to warrior one. And then drop your hands behind you. Tilt at the hip hinge. Sweep the arms out in front of you and rise back up into warrior one. Drop the hands to the hips. Slide back into that left hamstring. And we really want to feel the foundation of leg strength here. Keep that with you as you tilt your way forward. Feel that hip hinge. And then sweep the arms out. Get that length and rise all the way up. Rebend the knee into warrior one. Hip girdle neutral. And then we'll roll the warrior two. Good vertical torso. Right heel spins up. We're into crescent. Drop the hands and let's step forward. Sweep the arms up and overhead. And exhale through forward fold. We should feel some space here. Really try to find your way into that depth. And inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale into fold. Plant your hands and we'll walk down dog. Let's come down to hands and knees tabletop, flip the tops of the feet, and sink our way back into child's pose. And we just land all the way back into child's pose here. And so this fire really is incredible. It doesn't seem like it matters how close you get to it. It never burns you. And yet, even if you're seated quite far away, it finds a way to warm you. And the adults sitting around this fire start to talk about that. They start to question how something could burn without emitting smoke, how something could be real with all of this good. One night, over a few shared drinks, they start kind of debating whether a fire is a fire if it doesn't produce smoke. Some of the elders are chiming in that a perfect fire doesn't produce smoke. It burns so efficiently. And they're kind of getting waved off. Someone goes and they grab a clump of wet leaves. They toss it into the fire. And everyone around goes quiet as they wait for the smoke to rise. But it doesn't. After some time, the leaves burn up, smoke emitted. Let's give ourselves just 30 more seconds here. And when it feels appropriate, let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees, tabletop. Curl our toes, lift our seat, and find our way into down dog. Maybe give yourself a little tailbone sway to get a little extra depth. And then let's walk our way forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Drift your awareness to your sacrum. Let's roll ourselves up, vertebrae by vertebrae. We'll bring our hands together, heart center. Feel your way into mountain. Breathe and land in this mountain. And then let's slide our left foot straight back into lunge. And we want to get this back leg locked in. So feel that high calf activation. And then slide back into your right hamstring so that we feel the strength in those legs. Let's bring our hands from together, interlaced, and then extend that interlace straight overhead. And just start to tilt forward to where your hamstrings are comfortable. Taking those arms towards the front of your room, maybe pointing the index fingers into that space. And then we'll rise back up, drop the hands to heart center, bend the front knee, and step back to the front of your mat where we land and breathe our way into mountain. And then let's take this to side two. We're going to slide the right foot straight back. We're going to establish the foundation of our shape first, get the strength into that right calf, and then slide back into your left hamstring. We want the legs to be anchored here. Interlace the fingers, extend the arms overhead, and then tilt forward to what your hamstring feels capable of. Maybe extend those index fingers, and then we'll rise back up. Rebend the front knee, drop the hands, and step to mountain. Breathe and land here. When you're ready, when your body feels recovered, and that really should be your guide, when your body feels recovered, let's slide our left foot straight back so that we land once again. And we get that left calf activated. And then we slide back into the right hamstring. Maybe you let the weight shift back towards that left heel just a little bit more. Interlace the fingers, extend the arms overhead. Give yourself that forward tilt, hip hinge. And then drop the hands to the mat. Extend the crown of the head. Release the lumbar into elongation. And then let's step the left foot forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Roll your way back to mountain. Oh, nice work. Bring your hands together, heart center. Slide our right foot straight back. Establish the foundation of the shape. Think about the strength required in the legs. Then we'll slide back into that left hamstring, interlace the fingers, extend the arms overhead, hinge at the hips, activating that hamstring musculature. And then release the hands down to the mat. Think about getting the weight back into that right heel, getting the crown of the head towards the front of your room. And then we'll step forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands. We'll walk the down dog. Big, full depth of down dog. Come down to hands and knees, tabletop, flip the tops of the feet and think your way back into child's pose. So next night, this conversation picked right up again. How could this fire be real if it didn't produce smoke, even if you put wet leaves in it? Someone reached into a bag and pulled out a hunk of tire. They got up and everyone went quiet. They walked over to the fire and they chucked this like 6-inch slice of tire in and just stood there waiting for the black smoke to rise. But it didn't. The fire burned clear and perfect. It illuminated their children so that they could play. It kept them warm. And yet people got even more skeptical of this thing they were gathering around. Let's give ourselves just 30 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate for you, let's pull ourselves to tabletop and then extend our legs straight out in front of us for staff. And as the legs extend, just follow them forward into what will be the last seated forward fold. Nice little opportunity to compare and contrast how your first fold feels in comparison to your last fold. Last 30 seconds here. Eventually, when it feels ready, when you feel ready, we'll walk our way back to staff and then we're going to lower ourselves onto our spine. Another compare and contrast moment, right? We did make it onto our spine at the beginning of class. So, opportunity to kind of feel how your body has changed in about 45 minutes. Nice work. Let's let the bottoms of the feet come together and the knees fall out wide. A little bit more about resetting completely here. So, if this is not a shape where your body can just relax into, feel free to release into something that your body feels more relaxed in. And then we're just going to connect back to our breathing into the shape we are in. And so the next night, everyone's kind of talking about this fact that somehow this fire didn't produce any smoke, but it burnt a tire. How weird that is. Some people are even starting to say that it didn't happen, that there's no way that they all watched it. Someone put a tire in the fire and it didn't burn smoke. They're saying maybe the smoke was so dark they couldn't see it. But they were all there. We'll give ourselves just 60 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate, let's bring our knees back to neutral. Kneecaps point towards the ceiling. I'll just start a little dynamic sway, a little rotation. Just letting your body experience that lumbar rotation. Feeling into the capacity of your rotation here. Next time the knees fall over to the left, let's let them settle there. And we'll bring our knees back to neutral. Just land here, breathe here, feel this neutrality, and then let your knees fall over to the second side. When you feel balance left to right, we'll bring our knees back to neutral. And as the knees come back to neutral, once again, just settle into that, breathe into the neutrality. And then ask yourself if there's anything that you might want, might need, might benefit from prior to Shavasana. And if there is, let's offer that to our body now. And then when you're ready for some stillness, let's just drift into a shape where we can appreciate some stillness. So, as they're all talking about this impossibility that they witnessed the night before, this man is about 40 years old. He gets up and says, I'm going to solve this right now. And he comes back about 10 minutes later with a huge bag of rubbish. And he pours it on the fire. And the fire starts to sputter. It starts to change color. It starts to stink as this rubbish starts to burn. And then the fire gets dimmer and dimmer and dimmer until there's just a smoldering pile of garbage spewing out this black smoke. Just settling under version of stillness. That night, darkness fell over the crowd of people that had gathered around this fire for weeks. And the next morning, the entire village reeked of burning rubbish. And you say that smell never really left the village. But they had become accustomed to gathering around the fire. And so the next night, on top of the smoldered ash of a rubbish pile, they built a new fire. This one poured off smoke. It stunk of remnants of rubbish. When the winds shift, it would blow smoke into people's faces and they would cough. If they got too close, it would burn them. If they were too far away, it wouldn't provide warmth. The children were too scared to play around this fire because the shadows it cast were harsh and scary. Let's bring some movement to our fingers and our toes. But no one ever spoke of that first fire again. Movement up into our wrists and our ankles. Movement up into our elbows. And our knees. Our shoulders and our hips. Neck, head, jaw, eyes, tongue. Eventually, the entirety of body moves and we'll transition ourselves into a seat once again. Just finding a place where our spine can be tall, breath can be fluid, and eyes can close. Let's inhale our hands together, heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you remind yourself that if you're unable to accept that which is not of your making, you'll never know the depth of the gifts you've been given. And see how that impacts your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this evening's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Monday, guys. Appreciate the heck out of you being here, taking care of yourself, getting those hamstrings worked out. Have a beautiful week. I'll be back Sunday to recharge and we'll do this again next Monday. Love the heck out of you. Mwah.